Okay, let's jump right in. We're doing a deep dive today into, well, something really fundamental for how tech gets made globally.
Yeah, the world of electronics distribution, specifically in Europe, it sounds niche, but it's crucial.
Absolutely. And we're using the source materials you've shared with us to try and, unpack it all.
Right.
Our goal really is to cut through the jargon and get to the core insights. We want to figure out the main channels these components actually flow through
hmm
and zero in on the big markets. We hear Germany's key, so we'll look at that. And I think most importantly, understand how the company's actually building things, the OEMs, the original equipment
Right,
manufacturers.
the ones using the parts.
Exactly. How do they decide who to buy from? It feels like a really critical decision.
Oh, it absolutely is. And as the sources show, it's a much more dynamic and strategic landscape than just, getting parts from point A to point B.
More than just logistics, then.
Definitely. It's this whole sophisticated ecosystem that, well, it impacts everything from innovation to supply chain stability and, yeah, even the cost of the gadgets we all use.
Okay, so let's get into it. To understand how these vital little bits and pieces move around Europe, the sources kind of map out the different pathways. What are the main channels or players we're seeing here?
Well, the materials point to a few key routes. First off, dominating the market, you've got the authorized distributors.
Authorized distributors.
Yeah.
Okay, big names.
Yeah, the sources mention specific ones like Aero Electronics, Avnet, Farnell, the really large players.
Okay, those are definitely familiar names in the industry. So why do they dominate? What gives them that edge according to the sources?
It seems to be largely down to their massive component catalogs, just sheer range.
Hmm.
And they have these deep official partnerships directly with the component manufacturers.
Ah, so they're the official route in a way.
Pretty much. They act like these huge central hubs, offering an incredible variety of parts from loads of different makers. So for most standard needs, they're the go-to source for OEMs.
Makes sense. But, I mean, the market isn't just them, is it? The sources also talk about independent distributors. What's their role? Where do they fit in?
Right, the independents.
Yeah.
They're actually described as critical for, well, specific situations, especially when OEMs need parts that are hard to find.
Hard to find. And you mean like older components, maybe? Or stuff that's suddenly super high demand?
Exactly that. They specialize in sourcing components that might be obsolete, end-of-life parts, or stuff that's on allocation.
Allocation, meaning demand is way higher than supply.
Precisely. So the independents are kind of the essential lifeline when you just can't get what you need through those main authorized channels. Think of them as the sourcing specialists, the ones who dig around and find that needle in a haystack.
That sounds like it touches on supply chain resilience, doesn't it? Using independence isn't just about convenience. It could be, well, strategically necessary sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. The sources imply they play a really vital role in mitigating risk, especially against, sudden disruptions or just the normal life cycle of tech, or just normal life cycle of tech where parts become obsolete.
Okay, so we have authorized and we have independent. What else?
Then there's direct OEM sales. So the manufacturer selling straight to the companies using the parts.
Right. And when does that usually happen? Is it just for like absolutely massive orders?
The sources suggest it's typically for really high volume needs. Yeah. Or sometimes for very specialized, maybe even custom designed components.
Right.
It often happens with key accounts where there's maybe a need for close technical collaboration or specific integration work. That direct line just makes more sense then.
Got it. What about VARs, value added resellers? That term comes up too.
Hmm. Their role, as the name suggests, goes beyond just, shipping boxes of parts.
So, what kind of value are we talking about? What do the sources say they actually do for OEMs?
They offer services like kitting.
Kidding.
Yeah, where they package multiple different components together into a single kit ready for the production line. Or they might offer various types of customization.
Ah, I see. So, it's not just convenience.
No, the sources indicate it actually saves the manufacturers quite a bit of assembly time and complexity.
Right,
It helps streamline their own production.
right. Makes their life easier.
Yeah.
Okay. And finally, there's a channel that seems to be growing fast, e-commerce platforms. The sources mention Mouser, DigiKey.
Yep. These online platforms offer, well, incredibly convenient web access to huge inventories. They often specialize more in smaller volumes, R&D orders, prototyping, that kind of thing.
So speed and accessibility for maybe less predictable needs.
Exactly. The sources describe them as being really critical for niche requirements or maybe urgent needs where getting a broad range of parts quickly is the top priority.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because while those big authorized players might handle the bulk, the volume, Hmm.
It seems like the independents and the e-commerce guys are absolutely vital for specific, often urgent or specialized situations. It really paints a picture of a hybrid market in Europe. OEMs aren't just picking one lane.
Precisely. It's not one size fits all. It's about using different channels strategically for different needs, different parts of their business.
Okay, so that covers the who, the different types of distributors and channels. Now, what about the where? The sources dive into the geography too. Where is all this activity concentrated in Europe?
Yeah, the geography matters. The material gives us insights into quite a few countries, actually.
Yeah.
Let's see, Germany, France, the UK, Italy, Spain, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Russia, Turkey, Belgium. Quite a list.
It's a broad spread. But reading through it, the sources seem to really single out one country as the market leader. Which one is that and why?
Yeah, they definitely point to Germany being the leader.
Germany. Okay, and the reasons for that dominance,
Mhm.
is it just size? Well, according to the sources, it's more about Germany's high adoption rate of electronic components combined with its um, really strong focus on R&D, research and development.
Oh, okay.
They have this robust technological infrastructure, a big focus on innovation, which means their OEMs are constantly needing the newest, sometimes quite specialized
So
components.
it's the nature of their industry driving demand.
Exactly. It creates these specific demands that, in turn, shape how the distribution network needs to function, not just in Germany, but influencing trends across the region.
That's a great point. It's not just volume, it's the type of demand. Okay, that makes sense. So, right, we've got the channels, we've got the key geography, Germany's setting the pace. But now this is the bit I find really fascinating, looking at it from the OEM's perspective. The company's actually using the parts.
Hmm.
How do they possibly navigate all this? How do they decide, okay, for this part, I need this channel, and then how do they pick one specific distributor out of maybe several options?
Yeah, this is where you see the real strategic thinking kick in for the OEMs. And the sources, they actually detail the factors they weigh up when they're choosing, first, which type of channel to even use.
Okay, so what goes into that initial channel choice? What are the big factors?
It seems to boil down to a few key things. Component availability, obviously, can this channel actually get us the parts? Then scalability, can they handle the volumes we need now and maybe in the future?
Right.
Geographic reach is another one. Does their network match where we manufacture or where our customers are?
Yeah.
And crucially, how well does that channel fit with their overall supply chain strategy?
Okay, so an OEM might think for this critical high volume chip where we need technical support, maybe direct from the manufacturer or a key authorized partner makes sense.
Exactly.
But for all these thousands of standard resistors and capacitors, maybe a broadline authorized distributor or even e-commerce for quick buys is better.
Precisely. The sources show OEMs are constantly doing this balancing act: cost, reliability, strategic fit for that specific product or market. They often end up using these hybrid models, mixing and matching channels.
To optimize things.
Yeah, to optimize for efficiency, but also, importantly, for resilience. It really makes you think about how their big picture business goals drive these seemingly tactical sourcing decisions.
It really does. It's not just buying parts, it's building a resilient system.
Right.
Okay, so let's say they've decided, right, for this category, we need an authorized distributor. How do they then choose which one? There must be criteria for picking and maybe excluding certain distributors.
Absolutely. The sources detail that too. When it comes to selecting a specific distributor, OEMs prioritize factors that directly impact their production and reduce risk.
Like what? What's top of the list?
Quality assurance is huge,
Yeah.
paramount. They need absolute trust that the parts are genuine, they meet spec, no counterfeits, no failures.
Makes sense. What else?
Then you've got pricing competitiveness, naturally. Logistics reliability, this is massive. Can they actually get the parts where they need to be on time,
Yeah.
consistently?
The whole delivery aspect.
Exactly. Technical support is often important too, especially for more complex components. And of course, compliance with all relevant regulations.
And on the flip side, what gets a distributor kicked off the list? What are the exclusion criteria?
Well, the sources indicate they'll quickly exclude distributors with a poor track record.
Yeah.
Late deliveries, quality issues. Also, if their product range is too limited and doesn't cover the OEM's needs.
Right. Not a one-stop shop.
Yeah. Or if their regional coverage just isn't good enough for where the OEM operates or sells their final products. And you see, this really underlines why trustworthy distributors, ones with strong networks, and especially those offering those value-added services like kitting,
Mm-hmm.
why they're so heavily favored. They're not just suppliers anymore. The sources paint them as critical partners in managing those unavoidable supply chain risks. OEMs need partners they can really, truly rely on.
To keep the lines running.
Exactly. Keep production smooth.
So it's this incredibly complex dance, isn't it? Between availability, cost, strategy, geography, risk, trust, and that added value. And the sources also sort of hint that this isn't static, right? They mention e-commerce growing, these hybrid models being key.
Definitely. It's an evolving landscape.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. We've taken quite a deep dive today into, well, the engine room of European electronics manufacturing, the distribution network. We've unpacked the different roles played by authorized distributors, independent distributors, direct sales from manufacturers, those value-added resellers, and the growing e-commerce platforms.
Looked at all the key channels.
Yeah. We also looked at Germany's leading position and linked that specifically to its R&D focus, not just its size.
Right. The innovation driver.
And maybe most importantly, we've tried to get inside the heads of the OEMs, understanding the really critical factors they weigh up: availability, strategy, cost, yes, but also that absolute need for reliability, trust, and value-added services to navigate all the risks.
It's a strategic puzzle for them.
It really is. So, thinking ahead now, especially with everyone talking constantly about supply chain resilience these days.
It's the hot topic.
It is. And you see the relentless march of digital platforms, e-commerce getting bigger in every sector. How do you think the balance of power might shift between those traditional distributors and these fast-moving e-commerce players in the next few years?
That's the big question.
And what could that shift really mean for the OEMs, the companies actually trying to build the next generation of tech, whether it's, advanced industrial gear or the phones in our pockets?
Yeah. How does it change the game for them?
Something to definitely think about. Well, thanks for sharing all these source materials with us. This has been a really insightful deep dive.
Good discussion. Lots to unpack there.
Definitely. And thank you out there for joining us on this journey today.